Have you ever wanted to ride in a submarine without joining Sean Connery on the hunt for the Red October? On this episode of the Colonize the Ocean podcast, we're joined by John Antaramian of Atlantic Submarines. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Colonize the Ocean podcast. My name is Adam Jewell. I am the social media manager for the Atlantic Sea Colony business project, whatever you want to call it. And with me is the founder of Atlantic Sea Colony. It is Brendan Traxler. Brendan, how you doing today, buddy?
We're good.
So we got a special guest again, like we said, with this season of Atlantic Sea Colony, with this season of Colonize the Ocean. We wanted to get a lot more guests on, so we've got a few already, and today we got another awesome one that we're going to be talking to. It is John Antaramian, and I think I nailed that name perfect. So, John, thank you for coming on the show, and tell us how you're doing.
I'm well, gentlemen. I am up in Michigan right now, and we're enjoying a beautiful, mild summer. Actually, this is my first time up in the cold weather, and I'm loving it.
So, are you living up there now, or are you just visiting?
I am. I'm living up here full time. My wife, stepson, and I moved up here, and we actually moved up here to set up a submarine tour operation in and around Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, and it's a pretty neat undertaking. As you mentioned before, we started off building the semi-submersibles down in the Florida Keys for the last decade or so, and it's really taken off. We've managed to meet a lot of really unique people in the industry. I'm thrilled to come across your website and see what you guys are bringing to the underwater atmosphere.
Yeah,
and
appreciate that.
The marine industries above and below the land itself. Growing up in South Florida and the Florida Keys, we really were able to immerse ourselves with a whole different crowd of people who have a beautiful respect for everything below the water surface. And with the Ray, as you mentioned, it was a semi-submersible design that we really wanted to bring to, tourism, you could call it, but really give it a cheaper, inexpensive way and cost-effective for people to get out and explore the reef from what we thought would be the comfort of their own living room. But yeah, it was a unique opportunity for us to bring an affordable way for people to get out and check out the reef without having to put on scuba gear or pay an arm and a leg to do so.
So I guess I got multiple questions already, just in that little synopsis right there. But I guess my first one is, how did you go from living in Florida to Michigan? I mean, a lot of people are trying to go the other route, and here you are moving north and getting ready for the winter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. In fact, a lot of Michigan locals really scratched their head when we told them we came up here from the Florida Keys. But the Great Lakes is, I got a passion for treasure hunting and history and archaeology, and I had the opportunity to work with Mel Fisher Treasures growing up in South Florida in the Keys, and looking for treasure and anything historically significant or artifacts in saltwater is like pulling a burnt piece of peanut brittle out of the oven and just watching it crumble in front of your face. And the Great Lakes is a beautiful time capsule. I mean, you have fresh water and cold temperatures in anoxic atmosphere, which really inhibit any oxidization or decay of artifacts. So you can pull something up 5,000 years old if it has organic matter in it, and the decay would be significantly less than it would in salt water. That being said, there's also some great geographical anomalies up here, especially in the Straits of Michigan, the dividing body of water between Michigan's Upper Peninsula and Lower Peninsula, right where the Mackinac Bridge spans. There's a pretty unique geographical subfloor feature on the seabed where you have what would be the equivalent to Niagara Falls, say about 10, 12,000 years ago. And what I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with the Younger Dryas period, but the outflow of water from Lake Superior and Lake Michigan would be that choke point at the Straits of Michigan where Mackinac Island, a real popular tourist destination, is. Mackinac Island, you can throw a baseball at it. It's about 150 yards off of the northeast corner of Mackinac Island. And it was discovered in 2007, where basically Little Niagara Falls sits 67 feet below the water surface. And what 10,000 years ago would be a 200 to 300 foot cliff of a waterfall. And today we have density currents and thermal currents that'll just cascade off of it that sit 67 feet below the water surface and tumble down to about 278 to 300 feet. And not only is it a great opportunity to take people out in an underwater submarine and show them that cascading effect with the density currents, but it's also a neat opportunity to get out and explore any undiscovered shipwrecks throughout the Great Lakes, again using that time capsule effect, which, you know, modern day exploration documents anything from 500 to 600 years. Even if you want to throw a curveball of history and talk about some pre-Columbian expeditions out there, some people are even talking about Minoan civilizations excavating copper ore out of the Great Lakes 5,000 years ago. But either way, whatever you have, 5,500 or 50 years, it's still a great way to dive down, see what kind of preservation the fresh water and cold temperatures have done in that oxygen depleted atmosphere to really preserve history and bring it out to the public and let anybody discover it for themselves if they want to hop in a submarine tour or throw on a scuba tank.
Yeah, I'm from Illinois originally, so obviously, the Great Lakes are right there. That's the only body of water I really knew growing up. So I'd seen some of the footage, of ships and stuff like that have been, they're perfectly preserved down there. So yeah, definitely. I was unaware of I know the phenomena of underwater, falls and stuff along those lines, but I wasn't aware of the one up there in the Great Lakes. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, one of my heroes, James Cameron, gentleman who not only designed his own submarine to go down to the bottom of the Marianas, but him and Dr. Rob Ballard have found the world's largest waterfall, which is underwater, right up off the Grand Banks in our northern hemisphere there. So that's pretty exciting.
So segueing into what you're talking about there, obviously that opened up business opportunity for you, and so is this something that you started, or are you joining with somebody, or what's going on here?
Yeah, well, the whole submarine thing started. It's kind of a two-part entity. We have the semi-submersibles that we built to really get out and explore the shallow, really first atmosphere style reefs for tourist industry and educational purposes. And then we started building our own deep water submersibles, which we're trying to use for deep water exploration at this moment. And Hurricane Irma actually was the turning point, the fulcrum in which it literally leveled our playing field and enabled us, for lack of a more cheery phrase, enabled us to start from scratch and kind of turn our operation from building semi-submarines and going home with fiberglass and resin embedded under your skin every night to actually working with deep water pressure vessels and rebreather systems to try to go out and explore stuff that's deeper. But the whole semi-sub thing started with our aquaculture facility I originally moved down to the Florida Keys about 15 years ago, and was working as a diver for Mel Fisher Treasures. We did about 4 days on, 5 days off. So in my downtime, I got to work at the Dolphin Research Center, where I had met my future partners, Charlie and Kristen Barra, and we started the Aqua Ranch, which was a aquaculture and shark cage dive facility. As it grew and developed, we started breeding bonnet heads and lemon sharks, and we really expanded rather quickly. And the Florida Keys, being the magnet that it was for tourism, and it also attracted a lot of Hollywood types, and we started educating Discovery Channel cameramen before they went down to film Shark Week down in Shark Alley there in South Africa in Cape Town. They would come to us, and we would acclimate them and get them prepared to figure out how to get the feeding frenzy with sharks going and how to react when it started. And we would get them in the shark cage, and then we'd get them outside of the shark cage and get them acclimated with feeding sharks by hand, etc. And then we'd take them offshore. And when I talk about the aquaculture facility, we had a unique opportunity to get a piece of property. It was a 14-acre saltwater lake, and when they built the overseas highway back in the 50s, they dug these holes along the side of the road to create fill for the highway. And in digging the holes, they left about 60-foot deep pits. And the water table down in the Keys being 3 feet below the subsurface, seawater fills in rather quickly. So these pits become tidally fed. And we ended up getting a 14-acre lake that was about 57, 60 feet deep on average. And we just put fishing nets. We teamed up with Ingersoll Rand, another deep sea fishing company that helped provide us with the tackle and nets to build that. And we started filling it up with sharks. And some of our veterinary marine biologists help us get the atmosphere stabilized so we could breed the sharks in it. And we teamed up with some of the community colleges, Florida Keys community colleges down there. We built a welding wall so they could teach their underwater commercial industrial divers welding techniques. The United States Navy sent us some of their divers so we could teach them how to decompress in diving bells. And we had a intensive diving, industrial diving program that was really helpful for us to supplement and get our name out there. And so much as that it ended up attracting the attention of NASA. And that was another luck of the draw, because we had this macro green algae growing on our property. It's called Salicornia. And anybody who has an eclectically refined palate at a fancy restaurant might see a Salicornia salad. But really all it is fancy lettuce. And it just tastes like salty lettuce. And NASA's interest in it was that threefold. They were going to use it for an alternative food source. They were going to use it for an alternative fuel source. And all of it was to help colonize the moon for their 2024 Project Constellation. And since then, I don't know. I think the Obama administration did a pretty good job of nixing any of the funding for that, but it seems like Trump's administration is gung-ho about it, so way to go there. But politics aside, that really helped us get on the map and offer shark cage diving tours for people who would hop in our shark cage in our saltwater lake. And at the time, we were the only shark cage diving operation in the continental United States that could offer really shark cage diving. Believe it or not, shark cage diving in the U.S. is forbidden unless you go outside federal waters, 3 to 11 miles, depending on your surroundings. So the shark cage dive experience really spawned us creating the semi-submersibles, because not everybody wanted to hop into the shark cage, and those who didn't wanted to get the experience of the underwater reef. my grandmother specifically included. And so we ended up building an acrylic cube, basically, for those who didn't want to get in the shark cage. And it would rain a lot in Florida. You could set your watch by a 4 o'clock shower. And we ended up accumulating too much rainwater, so we put a roof on the acrylic cube. And then next thing you know, we said, we've gone this far, let's put some thrusters on it. And that's really kind of how we led to start building the Ray, the 5-passenger semi-submersible. And there we started bench testing some of our electrical MOSFET systems, and we ended up patenting one of our own wireless thruster systems using some pretty neat technology, PoE systems and Rodin coils. And we were able to create a wireless thruster that enabled us to free up any type of penetration that you would need to connect your electrical cable to a power plant. Well, by using the Rodin coil, it's basically Tesla technology 101. And the closer you get to your power plant, the more thrust you put out, etc. So that was one of the innovative things that the Ray really brought to the table that we're able to incorporate into one of our deep water submersibles as well.
So now the Ray, are you going to be using those in Michigan as well, or are those that's the past and you're moving on to something else?
Believe it or not, the when Hurricane Irma came around, it was August 28th when I had my first sea trial for our first production. We had 4 production models of the Ray ready to go out, and as I had applied for my insurance, because there was a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, our insurance company issued a moratorium on any new policies. So 10 days later, Hurricane Irma, Category 5, rolled through the Keys and leveled everything. So it took out 3 out of our 4 semi-submersibles, and we still have the mold, and we did deliver one of them. But if we were able to focus more on our deep water submersibles, and you know, if somebody has the desire for a fleet of semi-subs, yes, I would build them in a heartbeat. But it's exhilarating to take the next step into a 96-hour life support pressure vessel and go explore where, you know, few people have gone before.
So for that, are you guys designing and building your own, or are you using pre-existing subs, or what are you doing there?
We're doing both, actually. We're able to buy a couple of 1961 to 1969 model Navy diving bells. And the reason I specify that year is my partner, Dave Banks, who is a brilliant backyard genius mechanic in his own right, he found that the tensile strength for these particular year model Navy diving bells has the carbon percentage in it to create a higher tensile strength necessary than what we could get in a modern day equivalent diving bell. Not to mention we get them at a Navy auction for $2,500, so that's great. And we outfit it with our own 6-foot acrylic windows, and there's one of 53 different rebreather systems we have the option to put in there, and we've been doing that successfully. Dave also purchased a submersible out of Norway, an SM300, a 3-passenger deep water manned submersible that he's been working with for a while. He's done some treasure hunting in the past, and he's just an all-around fantastic engineer. So I look up to him, and I'm blessed with being he's my mentor.
Yeah, that's very cool. You got something, Adam?
But one of the things that I've I've kind of noticed with, looking at a lot of different businesses that are working on submarines, personal submarines, just that like field, is that the ones that I've seen are so, it seems like so expensive, so I don't know, extravagant in a way. Do you foresee like kind of like, because you've been in the manufacturing side and I've always had an interest in the manufacturing of anything just because that's what I've known my whole life. But do you foresee that as a demand grows and there is more need for submersibles, that it can be a much more affordable, I guess, I don't know, some people might call them a toy just to be able to have them and go do their own thing with them. But do you see it being a affordable product in the future that more average people like me would be able to just buy one?
Yes, and no. Um, because the submarine industry is such a niche market, um, is really feeds off the same way that the supercar industry is such a niche market. I mean, there's the demand for people who want to go in excess of 200 miles an hour and they're going to pay for it. Well, I think the same thing is really going to drive the economics of the submarine manufacturing industry. On the other hand, I believe you're going to see the cost, and um, if you want to run a tour operation and you want to get 20 people into a submarine, I believe it's going to be more economically viable to do so in that route. I think that the private sub industry, as much as I personally would like to make it affordable for everybody, uh, even if I could, I'd have my price point for a semi sub would be between $80,000 and $90,000, and it even my costs don't come close to making a profit on something like that. But as I was told years ago, estimate your price to be about $250,000 a seat, and I would expect that that's tripled since I was told that probably a decade ago. And a lot of the manufacturers who are making it and are able to produce models are doing so because they've created their own technology to manufacture these. I mean, to pressure test your portals, to pressure test anything that size. You got to create the chamber. I know that Triton has phenomenal facilities, and they've really invented their own equipment to produce these models. So I don't think it's going to become any cheaper, but I think that you might have people, Carl Stanley, for example, down in the Channel Islands and Roatan in Honduras, has been offering submarine tours for people for the last 15, 20 years, and he's built his own sub. But it's not cheap to do something like that. For an hour, it might cost you $300 to $600 per person. So, again, it's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity that you're going to get to go down and explore. But you might want to save up before you do so. And I don't foresee in the near future anybody having submarines, if they're docked, to go out and have a weekend on the water. I know that there was a couple of guys out from MIT, and you gotta love the collegiate mentality in developing products that aren't anticipated for sale in the open market, because these guys, they created, I think it was a bicycle pedal drive, and it was still a pressure vessel. You could still maintain life support in it for X amount of time, but I think that their notion was to reduce the weight and reduce electrical consumption, and by doing so, they threw some bicycle pedals, which was a great idea. But at the same time, you still have your CO2 and respiration, where you have to filter all of your life support air. So
Yeah, and something like that, I think you'd end up being worse because you're pedaling, so you're going to be using more oxygen, and so it'd be
right,
yeah,
the catch-22.
uh huh. And then also with the personal
But
submarines,
the
you run into the whole maintenance costs then too, just like having a boat or a plane or anything. What's the maintenance cost of something like that going to run?
right, and the cost of some of these thrusters. Again, that's why we were so thrilled to have the wireless thruster with the universal power plant. But some of these thrusters can cost upwards of $8,000 to $10,000, and when you have 6 thrusters for your X, Y, and Z axis, then the price gets really steep really quick. And then I'd be curious to see if any of these manufacturers out there try to utilize any of Elon Musk's technology in the way that he's really perfected the lithium ion or lithium phosphate battery with the super factory.
Mm-hmm. I've also wondered about that too. I say as his batteries, as he's innovating, and who knows what's going to happen on Battery Day next month with what comes out from there. But the submarine industry has been one of the ones that's used batteries and stuff like that for the longest period of time in a tourist aspect. So they could benefit the most, in my opinion, from battery technology too.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, my cell phone, for example, I just got a new a Samsung Note, and it charges in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And last year's model cell phone took 3 hours to charge fully. And just the leap and bound in technology that's gone into something like that, of course it's proprietary, but if that opens itself up, it would be phenomenal to go from deep cycle batteries to AGM or
Yeah, totally.
batteries.
Yeah, the holy grail of solid state batteries. Whenever those come around, that'll be the. Yeah, that'll be. So with the tourist industry and with what you guys are trying to do up in Michigan, are you up and running yet, or where's your time frame for that?
We had anticipated we were ready to launch in April of this year, but obviously COVID-19 came out, and getting a crew of people packed tight into a sardine can and taking them down 300 feet obviously wasn't the most the best idea for government restrictions and social distancing. But we hope, provided that pandemic restrictions ease up or we get a cure for this damn thing, we hope to be doing so this time next year, running tours down there as well. Also, we have a tentative agreement with a streaming company to do a 10-episode, 3-season show for unexplored shipwrecks of the Great Lakes. The Shipwreck Museum up here, if anybody ever gets a chance to check it out in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, is phenomenal. Actually, Clive Custer, I think, is the president of one of their research investigative boards, but there's about 10,000 undocumented shipwrecks, of which they only have about 3,000 documented on the NOAA maps. And granted, the Great Lakes wasn't a huge treasure trove. I mean, there's no Spanish treasure up here, as far as we know, but there's a ton of history up here, and in so much as that there's speculation that the Minoan civilization back in 3000 BC was up here mining copper ore by the tens of thousands of tons. So one of the things we're looking into right now is actually Scott Walter from History Channel's Unearthed was discussing that there was not nearly enough copper ore in the European continent to fuel the advent of the Bronze Age. Where did they get the ore, or where did they get all the copper? Because a lot of people are saying that it came from the Great Lakes. There's about 2 billion tons of copper that was up here, and it's missing. There's about 5,000 mines all over Lake Superior that date back 5,000 years ago, and they found some clay tablets up here with different Minoan caricatures on it, and they don't know where it came from, but there's evidence of ancient mines up here, and nobody knows who did it. So
that's cool. I wasn't aware of that. That's really cool. Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, if you get a chance, check out Isle Royale in Lake Superior. There's about 5,000 plus 5,000-year-old mines up there, and historically, the gold rush actually put out less economic return than the copper rush did up in the Great Lakes, and each contemporary copper mine that is up there now, beneath that, there is an ancient, and I mean prehistoric ancient, copper mine from 5 to 10,000 years ago, and they were able to actually carbon date some of the timber trusses that shore up the mines themselves, and some of them came back 5,800 years ago. So that's pretty neat.
So so I guess trying to plug your guys' thing here. Do you guys have a website for the business yet, or is it just Facebook, or what are you guys doing?
Yeah, we do have a Facebook site. It's Atlantic Submarines. Our semi-submersibles, we build them as subsurface submersibles, but Atlantic Submarines and AtlanticSubmarines.com will be our doing business as operating name up here in the Great Lakes and out of Mackinac Island. And it's gonna be a fun summer next year.
Yeah.
We got a 105-foot mothership that we're going to run the support vessel off of, and we're gonna have groups out. My wife's running the galley, and we're gonna, if we could do sunset tours, etc. But really, the neat thing would be to get in the sub and really check out that mini Niagara Falls. In fact, in 2007, really when the advent of HD sonar came out, when Furuno and Garmin came out with these structure scans, the HD sonar, somebody had one on their vessel, and as they were coming across the Straits of Mackinac, they discovered, quote unquote, they call it Mackinac Falls, and it's about a 270-foot cliff where they found that it used to be the outflow for all the water in Superior and Lake Michigan. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, now you're on my bucket list for places I need to stop by here in the relatively near future. So
yeah, please do. We could definitely use the business.
Yeah, definitely. Since I still go up to Illinois every once in a while, and you're not that far away. So,
yeah, where are you guys based out of?
Well, I'm in Mississippi. I moved down here, and Adam, where are you at, Adam?
I'm in South Dakota, the closest state to any of the oceans or any relevant body of water.
So, yeah.
All right, man. Well, we definitely love what you guys are doing. In fact, there was the gentleman that I met not too long ago in Key West, and he bought a floating hotel, and he anchored it just outside federal lines, almost 13 miles off the coast of St. Petersburg. And he contacted us because he wanted us to develop a water taxi for him that would take his guests. It's basically 15 barges put together on a 3-story hotel, and he's marketing it as the sportsman's paradise, where they come out and they're right at the edge of the loop current in the Gulf of Mexico, so they could catch basically whatever they want.
Right.
Any high migratory species, they got it right out there. And he wanted us to incorporate some submarines in there, but underwater habitats are his future. And down in the Florida Keys, we have Jules Underseas Lodge, which is notorious for their underwater hotel. And but anybody who's been there, I'm not knocking Jules because I think it's a phenomenal place. In fact, my best friend's their dive instructor. But it's still a hotel in the middle of a lagoon, and anything that you can get out in the open water, well, that's the advent forefront of where we really need to be. So my hat's off to you guys.
Yeah, we really see the next few years really heating up. As being in this industry, we know there's several other players out there, and it's going to be interesting to see what everybody's doing and what happens in the next couple of years. But we all got a part to play, and it's an exciting time.
I'm curious to see where this goes on a legal platform and what kind of certific what kind of certifications and restrictions will pop up with regards to
Right.
this industry, especially with regards to narco-terrorism. I mean, you see some of these extravagant designs out there, and one of the things that comes to mind is who can afford
Right.
something like this, a $2 billion, 900-foot submarine. Well, we all know where the answer to that lies. But as much as I'd like to see one get built, I'm also curious as to who comes knocking on the door once they get commissioned for something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. That's the whole thing too. As I've been looking into it, it's just, if you go you do it within the United States, you got so many more regulations you got to go through versus going Honduras or Panama or somewhere else like that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's like I said, it's exciting, and we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, and I got to say one of the unique stories that I have in relation to that is, anytime I would go buy my materials, wholesale was right along the Miami River, and it was right next door to the shipping terminal for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And one of the times I brought my my semi sub down there, and the guy who runs the shipping terminal, he came out and all he wanted to know is how far the sub can go and what the payload is, and buddy, just check on the website. But
Yeah,
anyway, it was a pleasure.
Yeah. So, is there any, we've talked about a bunch of different stuff here. Is there anything we missed or anything else that you really wanted to plug or talk about?
No, not really. But the wireless technology and in utilizing vortex coil technology is something that I think every industry should really pay attention to, especially with the submarine or marine industry. Anywhere where you can free up a penetration is just another area where life support can go out the window. So if we were to have a totally intact pressure vessel and utilize wireless electrical energy, I think that is going to be a field where limitless application lies.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I've seen they've been talking about wireless, power for years now, and it's fascinating, and I'll definitely be checking that out. Yeah, I'll look into that because that's curious. All right, John. If there's nothing else, so you already again. Where can people find you? Where should people be looking for you at?
We are at Subsurface Submersibles on Facebook, facebook.com/Subsurface Submersibles. It's a mouthful. We're also at AtlanticSubmarines.com.
All right, Adam, you want to do any closing remarks here?
I've just been being quiet because, like I said, I got a dog that will not stop barking in the background, so I've just left my microphone on mute so I could let you guys do the business side and I could just learn. But yeah, nothing left for me to say. But thank you again, John, for coming on, taking time out of the. It's obviously an industry that we're going to be keeping an eye on, because in order for us to be successful, we need companies like yours to be successful because we're going to be working hand in hand. So once we're once we get our habitats running, we're gonna contact you and we'll discuss having the fleets and all that stuff to help us out. But other than that, like I said, thank you for joining us once again, and we wish you the best of luck in the future with your business.
Quid pro quo, my brother. And actually, the Aqua Ranch and any of those saltwater lakes down in the Keys are a fantastic area to vent test any type of underwater habitat. Especially at the Aqua Ranch, we had a really neat biome, and one of the anomalies we had at the ranch, because it's surrounded by mangroves and we had all the fish in there, there was a big anoxic, or rather a hydrogen sulfide cloud that would, on any given day, drift between 32 and 37 feet out of a 60-foot deep lake. And once we got below that H2S cloud, you'd turn on your light, it would be pitch black. It's the closest thing to being in utero I could possibly think of. But you turn on your flashlight, and it would reflect like a mirror off of this hydrogen sulfide cloud, and you'd be in this pitch black, totally in utero environment. And it's a really neat habitat to to test any underwater biomes you have. So feel free to come on down anytime. It'd be our treat, fellas.
Definitely. We appreciate it. And with that, thank you again.
Thank you for joining us.
Take care.
We would like to take this opportunity to thank our first patron, Edward. Thank you very much for your support. As a patron, you get perks such as early access to the podcasts and other videos. Plus, we'll have polls from time to time that you get to take part of. So we encourage you to hop over there for as low as $1 a month and support us on that.
Thank you guys for tuning in again to another episode of Colonize the Ocean podcast. As always, you can check us out on our social media platforms. You can see us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Library, YouTube, Reddit. All you got to do is look for Atlantis Sea Colony and you'll find us. Also, if you're able to donate to help us support our project, go to www.patreon.com/Atlantis Sea Colony. For any other info and the links to all those, you can go to www.atlantisseacolony.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.